Raina Troy Hotline.
Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your rant line, rave line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there?
Scratch, claw, up against the wall. Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys.
I can't believe it.
Let's open up that rave line! Woohoo!
Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. We're back with a Rant Line Carcast after USC's gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, soul-crushing. Any other ideas there? Painful. Whatever. Lost.
Irritating. Deflating.
Mm-hmm. Frustrating. Yeah. Insert your adjective. Loss for USC to number 4 Penn State, losing in overtime 33-30 at the Coliseum. We're going to give you our reaction and so much more. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Rant of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy, email address rantoftroy@pennside.com, phone number 818-643-7227, Second Woods Bruin Show. I'm your host, Mike Castillo, joined along with my co-host here in the Rant of Troy studio, across the room from me, Alicia Artola.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. I know I'm going to open it up. You're going to go on your long spiel as you typically do before a Carcast. But before you do, I just want to throw in 2 quick thoughts here. I think this was, of the 3 last-minute losses that SC has suffered, I think this one is the most painful, because that was a damn well played game from the Trojans in a lot of aspects. This is the Big Ten that everybody says SC's not ready for. The Big Ten, the SC is, they play soft, wimpy Pac-12 football. Bullshit. They just ran for 189 yards against Penn State. A Penn State, rushing defense that I'm going through it. When was the last time they gave up 189 yards to a team not named Michigan or Ohio State? Utah did it in the Rose Bowl. Sorry, no, 184 yards. That's even less. You got it. Arkansas in 2021, 3 years ago. SC ran the ball. They had success. They limited until the end. They limited their mistakes in plus territory. They made Penn State have to work so hard on offense because SC's defense was pushing them to the limit every time, but they were this close. And I think this one hurts because SC's best playmakers were this close from landing the knockout punch. Kamari Ramsey, this close from getting an interception that potentially wins the game. Miller Moss, this close from throwing a strike to Deuce Robinson that potentially sets up a game-winning field goal. This close. You can't be this close 3 times in a season because all the other games are going to be here before and lay the groundwork to say, well, you can't keep saying they're one play away. And I think that that's frustrating for this team because of all the losses. This one was the most impressive. And I know that doesn't feel good for SC fans to hear in this moment, but it was. You can go on your spiel. People in the comments want you.
People in the comments want me to rant about something I'm not going to rant about because y'all do enough ranting about Lincoln Riley and Miller Moss and players and coaches and everything like that. I want to rant about USC fans for a second. If before the season I had told you that USC would rush for 189 yards against Penn State, take them to overtime, and lose by 3 points, everybody in this chat, everybody at home, everybody in that stadium, everybody watching from the ends of the earth would have sat there and looked me in the eye and said, yes, I would take that. This is not a bad loss. This is not a bad loss. 15 years ago or so, USC lost to a highly ranked team at the Coliseum in overtime, and we called it the greatest loss of all time.
Yeah, Stanford. Andrew Luck.
But because this loss is the third loss of a season, people lose their shit.
Well, that's the context. Paul in the chat says, yeah, but we're 3-3. Yeah, that's exactly the context here. Yeah.
But again, Michael, you are the king of before the season talking about how wins and losses matter less than the eye test.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the eye test is telling me that this team is far better than 3-3. And yes, to the people in the chat, USC is 3 plays away from being 6-0. Certainly after this game.
Yeah. And you can't keep being one play away.
The Minnesota loss is way worse than this, like miles worse, because the Minnesota loss is USC letting a team that has no business winning a game win a game. Penn State is a very good team with a good offense, playmakers on offense, as we saw, defense, playmakers on defense. And USC went toe-to-toe with them and should have won a game against them, just like they went toe-to-toe with Michigan and should have won a game against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell me that this team sucks. Don't sit here and act like, oh, woe is me, USC, we're so terrible. Fire everybody. Get rid of everybody. No one's going to be in the Coliseum next week. All this bullshit. If you don't come to the Coliseum for the next home game, then that's on you. Because guess what? You take away USC's home field advantage and you abandon a team in the same way that you get pissed when players don't do what they need to do and act like, how dare people from Oklahoma or from Texas or from Florida or from Georgia or from Alabama laugh at USC fans for being the weakest pieces of just woe is me bullshit that's on the planet. You don't show up in time for the game. You don't come to games. And then you act like this is the worst thing you've ever seen. Like Lincoln Riley is doing something wrong. Like Miller Moss is doing something wrong.
I mean, he did throw a pick.
He did throw a pick. And I'm going to say it sucked for me personally to have spent as much time and energy as I have arguing for Miller Moss, singing his praises, saying that people have it wrong, saying that Miller Moss is doing a great job for USC, which he by and large is. And then he misses that one throw. But you know what? This is football. And sometimes the quarterback misses a throw. And sometimes you lose a game to a top 5 team in the country with a better defensive line than you and a better offensive line than you. Sometimes you lose those games. And it doesn't have to be a referendum on the program the way that everybody wants for this to be a referendum on the program. That's not how football works. It's not. And trust me, I'm frustrated as all hell. I'm frustrated that Miller Moss missed that play because we saw him make the play against LSU and it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We know he can make it. He missed it. I'm frustrated that Kamara Ramsey didn't reel in that interception. I'm frustrated that Lincoln Riley didn't run the ball more early in the third quarter. I'm frustrated that
Humphrey doesn't get home.
That literally no one on this defensive line ever gets home, ever.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated by all of these things. But mostly, I'm sick and tired of USC fans. I really am sick and tired. I'm not saying you need to be happy after a loss like this. I'm certainly not.
Right.
But this was a good loss. This was a commendable loss from a USC perspective. And I don't know what else to tell you. This team feels horribly unlucky to me. And go ahead and say that I'm making excuses. That's fine and good. But I watch a lot of football, again, every week, and I see teams that get lucky. And USC feels horrifically unlucky because that was pass interference both times. And Mekhi Lemon got his helmet ripped off and they didn't call a face mask. And both of those illegal blocks were marginal at best. But you know what? You can't do with you have to live with the refs and you have to live with the mistakes that your players make. And you have to live with all of those things. But in the end, if you're watching this game and you think that this USC team sucks, then stop watching. Because I'm not interested in just having a conversation about how Lincoln Riley should be fired every week. Guess what, guys? Lincoln Riley's not getting fired because you're not reaching into your pocket and pulling $100 million out of it to pay the buyout. So I'm not interested in having that conversation. Woody Marks is amazing.
He was great.
Mekhi Lemon is awesome.
He was great.
Jalen Smith is awesome.
He was great.
Kamari Ramsey is really good. I love what I'm seeing. Good. I was incredibly impressed with USC's offensive line in the run game. I didn't think they could win those battles, and by and large, they won those battles. That was awesome to see. And I look forward to seeing the continued progression of this offensive line as we go through the season, because if they can do this performance for the rest of the season, USC is going to win a lot of games and not have it come down to one play. And unfortunately, USC was in a position today where it came down to one play or two plays or whatever it was. And USC is going to need to figure out how to win these games. And maybe they don't, but maybe they do. I've sent some text messages here about how this team reminds me a lot of 2016 Notre Dame, which Bill Connolly famously looked at that team and said, they were 4-8, but like, this is the unluckiest 4-8 team that you'll ever see. Statistically, they were far better than that record. And, sometimes you just are on the wrong side of turnover math and on the wrong side of one bounce going your way or two bounces going your way or one player not making a play when you need it. All of those things happen and lead to a situation where you can be 3-3 and actually playing pretty good football, which is the situation that USC finds itself in. USC is 3-3 while playing pretty good football. Now, are we okay with USC playing pretty good football?
No, it's not good enough.
No, you need to be winning these games. You need to find a way to win these games. You can't have every game come down to one or two plays, or you will end up in this situation where you're a bounce or two away from being 6-0 or from being 2-4, whatever it is. But at the same time, like, this team is significantly better today than they were in week 1, and they won that week 1 game. So as far as the eye test goes, I see a team that played this game and think, yeah, this team can win out if they keep their heads on screwed on tight. It's now Lincoln Riley's job to keep their heads screwed on tight, because it's going to be really difficult. After going 3-3, I think this is one of the most difficult moments for Lincoln Riley to keep this to keep this team from losing its head and basically just giving up. And it's a sucky place to be in, but I keep going back to, like, I am far more pissed off at the conversations I have to have with USC fans than I am with this team right now.
Yeah. You still going, or did you land the plane?
I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say.
I like I said, I think this one's difficult because if you had won the first two games, the Michigan game and the Minnesota game, then
nobody's pissed. There are people who are pissed.
Yeah, obviously you're mad you lose a football game that you should have won, obviously, blah, blah, blah. 100%. And obviously being this close is never good enough, blah, blah, blah. Like, obviously, that goes without saying. But I think the fervor of the frustration is not in the same realm. And that's ultimately on SC. You can't keep playing games so close because you're not going to win every game close just because it's football. But more importantly, you're not going to win every game close when you are not truly a great team. I think SC is a pretty good team. Like this is the top 25 team. Like there's no question in my mind this is the top 25 team. And I think you're crazy if you don't see that. But great teams, when it comes down to the final play over and over again, they're going to make the play more often than not. And yeah, SC won a lot of games the last 2 years in the last play, but a lot of those games were games that had no business going to the last play. This one against the number 4 team in the country, when you're an underdog, like it going to the last play of the game, like isn't criminal.
Well,
but again, like this is coming off of a week in which you let the Minnesota game just completely go away. And
my problem, and again, not to, I want to just take over and go crazy, but my problem is this. If Miller Moss completes that pass to Deuce Robinson and USC kicks
yeah, I don't understand
guys.
Going on with
it's like this damn season.
I'm sorry.
If Miller Moss completes that pass to Deuce Robinson and USC kicks a field goal to win this game, is everyone saying that this team is terrible?
No, but
No.
The problem is that we can't just keep saying it.
No. If USC's defense gets off the field on 4th and 7 or 4th and 10, are we saying that this team is terrible? No, we're not. Because this team isn't terrible. This team is flawed, and we all knew that. By the way, everybody in the chat losing their minds. Did you pick USC to win the game? Because I didn't. The only person I know who picked USC to win the game was Mr. No Football Reasons over there. And guess what? Michael was right because USC was absolutely in this game and absolutely could have won this game. Bar one play there or 2 plays there or whatever.
But
we
can't keep
saying no.
Barring blank.
No, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, like, I think you do in football, you do have to take moral victories where they come. And for me, this game is a moral victory.
Here's my problem with the term moral victory, and maybe this is semantics. Moral victory is, I hate the term moral victory just like I hate good sportsmanship. Like, it's annoying words that you'd hear from like a soccer mom that takes the kids to rec league soccer and homeschools their kid or something. You know what I mean? Like, and doesn't watch sports and, feels good about like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not the term moral victory, I think, is BS. Now, I think sitting here and saying this is a good loss, I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand the context of what you're saying. But I do think that it's hard to just say that. Like, to me, good loss is something that you can say in hindsight about something. In the moment, I don't think anything is a good loss.
Well, this is not a good loss if USC goes on to lose every other game from here. Like,
right.
Then
sure.
You are what you are.
Yeah. I think for me, it comes down to, this was a game in which SC had in their hands and didn't land the knockout punch. And it's frustrating because they did it against a team that is a top 5 team in the country, surely. They answered all the questions that they were supposed to answer in this game, and they still lost. Like,
yeah,
we make a video every week on YouTube called USC wins if ... If these things happen, USC will win the game. The 3 reasons this week, I have my notes here. Where the 3 reasons were: if SC doesn't commit critical errors, until 14 seconds left in this game, they had not really committed a critical error. There was a stalled drive earlier in the game, but they had not committed a critical error
Backbreaking
until the interception with 14 seconds left in the game. The next point was if SC fits the Ohio State Michigan mold for Penn State. And I know a lot of people in the comments, a lot of Penn State fans in the comments were not happy with us mentioning that, SC theoretically could have some sort of challenge a la Ohio State, Michigan in terms of skill positions. Obviously, SC is not Ohio State, Michigan, but SC challenged Penn State just like the Ohio State and Michigan teams challenged Penn State. Check that box. And the last one was if SC protects Miller Moss with at least a marginally effective offensive line. Grading on a curve, because this is a ferocious, as our friends over at the Pac-12 podcast would say, offensive line. And this is the best, defensive line in terms of time to pressure and all that stuff. It was a great performance from the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
How many sacks did they have? One. And how many times did Abdul Carter go to make a play and they sidestepped him, or they left another dude in to block? He had his moments. He absolutely had his moments, but your good players are going to make good plays, right? And SC, despite all of that, was in position to win the game. They did all the things that if you check the box on their wish list, that they should win the game.
Which is why I'm so pissed at the refs. I mean, no one likes to blame the refs, but USC was trying to pull off an upset and did everything that we said they needed to do to pull off that upset.
Yeah.
But anytime you're trying to pull off an upset, you need a little help. And USC got the opposite of help. So, I mean, this is again, there's so many little things that we could be talking about. That's why this is so frustrating. Because we did, again, it's very frustrating because we have seen strides from this offensive line every week since that Michigan disaster.
Yeah.
They got better slightly against Wisconsin. They got way better in the run game. Still gave up the critical error.
In the run game, but not pass
against Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
And in this game, in a game where they should have been eaten alive, where we all agreed they were going to get eaten alive.
Yeah.
By the best defensive line bar next to Michigan that they were going to face this year. And not only did they not get eaten alive, they dominated actually in the run game. I think they give up the sack. Yeah, there's one or two moments where you want Miller Moss to have more time to throw, certainly. But again, grading on that curve, like the improvement could not have been more clear in this game because frankly, USC gets jiggle bagged in this game if they don't run the ball the way they do.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is Woody Marks being really good. But a lot of that also is, Woody Marks needs to be given room to run, and he was given room to run here and he made the most of it. This is what you can do to facilitate your running back. So the offensive line got a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And still USC is losing this game. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating because again, they're not parlaying these things into wins. And you got to do that, and you're not going to get credit for those things if you continue to do this every week, where you make strides but still lose because something else happened.
Well, and we talk about, I think Lincoln Riley, certainly he's the head coach. He's going to get the gist of the criticism for sure. I'm not surprised by that, nor do I think it's totally unfair, because ultimately the buck stops with your head coach. That's fine. But I will say, like, Danton Lynn has done a really good job with this defense, but this is the third time in 4 weeks that USC's defense has failed to get the stop for the game-winning score. I mean, ultimately the score that loses the game.
Yeah.
In those final minutes. And this one was the most frustrating because, again, they got them to 4th and long.
Yeah.
They got them to 4th and long.
They weren't getting sacks, but they were getting pressure.
Which, by the way, this is my biggest frustration with Danton Lynn. And maybe he has an explanation for this, for why it's still worth it. But USC sends a lot of blitzes while getting very little pressure. And maybe he would say we're sending blitzes and thus forcing them to leave people in, which takes away their targets downfield, which maybe helps them get the stop. I'm open to that explanation, but it still does come down to, for a team that blitzes as often as USC does, to get to not get pressure even, or to get marginal pressure the way that USC does, like, that's a problem. And that's that's contributing to these losses as much as, clock management or the quarterback or whatever it is.
I hear you. I really do. The flip side of that is Drew Aller came into this game having thrown 3 interceptions in his life. He threw 3 in this game. One of them's on a Hail Mary. Those shouldn't count. But he threw 2 interceptions, 2 real interceptions, right? And probably should have thrown at least a third, if not a fourth. And a lot of that, especially later in the game, was due to pressure that they did get. And it wasn't enough pressure. But it was pressure in some sense. And I think that's a step forward, but it's not a good enough step, especially when you give up the touchdown at the end, right? Like, again, you're not getting partial credit for this because you gave up the stop at the end. You also have Tyler Warren, like, literally turn into the love child of Dalton Kincaid and Christian McCaffrey. Like, this was he's on the Mount Rushmore of SC nightmares.
It doesn't
with
seem,
McCaffrey and Kincaid.
It doesn't seem to matter who is the defensive coordinator either. So, like, I don't know what's going on with this, but the way that USC gives up the big tight end game, I don't necessarily see this from other teams. And it's not a Danton Lynn problem specifically because it was an Alex Grinch problem. And it's not an Alex Grinch problem specifically because it was a Todd Orlando problem. And it's not a Todd Orlando problem specifically because it was a Clancy Pendergast problem.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't understand it. It's just a distinctly USC thing.
I think the problem for me with the Tyler Warren stuff, it's not the catches. It's not the total yardage. It's the yak yards. He had 224 yards on 17 catches with a touchdown, but 151 yak yards. I thought Penn State's offensive game plan, I was hit and miss with me. There were times when I really liked what Kotelnicki was drawing up. He drew up a ton of, like, really nifty plays for Tyler Warren to scheme him open. The touchdown pass where he snapped the ball and then ran down for that was bananas, right? And there were a bunch of plays in the first quarter that were insane.
You know what's so frustrating about that touchdown too? USC isn't tricked by it. Branch is there. Yeah. And he makes a ridiculous catch. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, like, so if they're scheming him open on some sort of a trick play or nifty play design, I can understand that. It's the times when that didn't happen, when he's wide open on the wheel route so he can catch it and run for 5 to 10 more yards. It's a screen that they're not able to break down and he's able to get a bunch of yards. Those are the backbreakers. Leaving him wide open when it's not a trick play or special design or a misdirection of any sort is a backbreaker, and you can't give those up. Because it's about limiting the damage. We all knew that their offense was going to be funneled through Tyler Warren, but, like, this was especially the case. I didn't realize it was going to be this much. Drew Aller threw 43 passes, 20 of them went in the direction of Tyler Warren. Not to mention that Warren was a running back and a center and a quarterback all in this game. It's brutal. Let's go to a bunch of super chats before we take a break here. 300 GJW says, super chat, thank you, by the way. Coach Lincoln Riley is not a good head coach, and Miller Moss is a mediocre quarterback at best. 3 losses and 3 winnable games, just horrible. I hear you. These were all 3 winnable games. And there's an alternate universe where SC is 6-0, and we said that they're battle tested. But you can't keep talking about that alternate universe when SC keeps losing the heartbreakers that are so close. I'm with everybody there. Absolutely. And again, you're not going to get partial credit for a game when you lose a close game, and that's your thing, is losing close games. So I understand the frustration with the coaching staff and with the players and all that. I totally get it. And I feel like I'm going to lose everybody in the comments right now. I think that was Lincoln Riley's best coach game of the season. Like, the game plan on offense was great. The play designs were great. The Quentin Joyner, the using Zachariah Branch as a decoy as many times as they did was great. The Quentin Joyner 75-yard touchdown on the fake reverse jet sweep, beautiful play call. The Woody Marks potentially fake double pass, great. And Woody Marks does an insane job to pull that off, if that's what the play design was, right? There was a swing pass in the fourth quarter when it looked like they were struggling to run in the second half. There was a swing pass to Woody Marks that, yeah, if you're struggling to run right up the middle in the third quarter like they were, find a way to move the run out to the perimeter. And they did that. The run looked like it was going to be, like it was abandoned in that third quarter because Penn State had changed their box counts and responded and made adjustments in that third quarter. And Lincoln Riley responded. He responded by running the ball down their throats in the fourth quarter to take the lead. Everything that people bitch about Lincoln Riley not doing, he did in this game. So yes, the coaching staff is ultimately who to blame when you lose close game after close game after close game. 1,000%. I am with everybody there. But like, and this is what makes this game so frustrating, is they did the right things. They did the right things and it didn't matter. They did the right things. It didn't. The clock management. I know people are mad about the clock management. I understand. I was someone who is always frustrated when teams don't move quick enough. I changed my stance on that earlier this year, especially after the LSU game, when I sort of saw what Lincoln Riley was doing. He did it twice in the LSU game. Is the Lincoln Riley slow play 2-minute drill, which is designed to not give the opponent any sort of chance for a rebuttal. And it worked twice against LSU. Should have resulted in 2 touchdowns against LSU, and only resulted for 1. Lance missed a field goal at the end of the first half against LSU. Today, I know people are mad that he wasted 30 seconds before the interception. It's a play where you're sitting there and yeah, I'm frustrated too about that. Like, I think there's a million ways that you think that cannot be the move. If Miller Moss puts the slant pass to Deuce Robinson where it's supposed to go, as it is designed, that is brilliant clock management. He catches the ball. He gets tackled at the 25 in the middle of the field. Lance comes in the direction in which he's made a bunch of field goals today. You put your team in position to win the game, and Penn State had zero opportunity to come back because you can't sit there and say, oh, they soared too quick.
Yeah.
Like, I get being mad and being frustrated at Lincoln Riley. I just don't think this is that game.
No, and trust me, I was sitting there saying, like, I get what he's trying to do. I would have not let that clock tick below 20 personally, because I still want to give myself an opportunity to continue to go down the field. But USC had 3 timeouts. USC had the ability to take 3 seconds per play and stop the clock and throw over the middle and not have any restrictions and all of that kind of stuff. So, like, yeah, I don't think that clock management is the issue. The issue, like you said, is that Miller Moss misses that throw, and it's devastating. There are always little things that a coach could do better. I think that USC could have been running the ball earlier in that second half, and and maybe that would have helped
Absolutely.
helped out the offense. But I am also somebody who tries to look at it from a matchup perspective, where oftentimes when you get mad at coaches for not running the ball, it's because the defense has taken that away. Because especially like Lincoln Riley, it's he's responding to what the defense is showing him. So if they're loading the box, he's theoretically not going to run into the box.
It's because it's a numbers game. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I do think that USC was running the ball well enough that I still would have taken that gamble a couple times. But we also saw in this game how many Woody Marks runs got hit behind the line. Like, this is just because you're running the ball well doesn't mean you're always going to run the ball well on the next play.
Yeah.
Because when you're running the ball well, it's because you had the matchup that you wanted. So it's not as simple as just keep running the ball, because the only reason you're running the ball that well is because they're doing a thing that's allowing you to do that theoretically. So it's so much more complicated than that.
LA Fred in the chat says, Michael, no rebuttal for Penn State, but you limit yourself too much as well. Margin for error is gone. Yes.
But the margin for error was an interception.
That's the point, though.
Yeah. That was the interception is the issue.
Yeah, like, I agree. There's no margin for error, and ideally you'd like margin for error. I'm with you 1,000%. Now, let's say all the plays stay the same, but instead of snapping with 14 seconds, Miller Moss snaps it with 34 seconds and then throws the interception. Penn State gets the interception. Again, there's the error, and has time to come down and win the game. Like, that is literally the point. The point of the slow-mo. Like, you can agree with not liking the slow play, but and I totally get it. I was there. I fully was anti-slow play until earlier this year, when I sort of understood the point of it. But I like it worked. Like, it worked. It didn't work literally because Miller Moss didn't make the pass. Yeah. But it worked. It worked. So I get the frustration. Absolutely. All right. Another super chat we got from Irvine Cattle Ranch. They were playing prevent offense. I hate prevent defense. I hate prevent offense even more. Thank you for the super chat, by the way.
Thank you for the super chat. I mean, I suppose, yeah, in that drive where they're letting the clock run, but again, if USC fans are pissed if USC tries to chuck the ball around and move the ball down quickly and leave a minute for Penn State to go down the field and score, because USC fans are pissed if USC loses. So,
right. Yeah. Kaylee in the chat says it doesn't work because Moss isn't competent. Again, this is not the podcast to get on here and sing the praises of Miller Moss because he throws the interception that loses him the game.
This was his worst game of the season.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of passes, especially in that third quarter, that he put them in spots not necessarily to be. Well, first of all, that Abdul Carter thing should have been intercepted a million times over. But there were passes like after they get the second interception, the corner routes that they throw to Zachariah Branch, it's a bad play. It's a bad play call. Zachariah Branch doesn't win his man. And Miller Moss doesn't throw a great ball, but at least he throws a poor ball that's not going to be picked. Yeah. And I thought Miller Moss did a lot of that today. Yeah. He didn't necessarily until it wasn't the case, right? Like, he threw a lot of passes that weren't great, but they weren't necessarily dangerous. And then that backfired with two really bad throws. The one that should have been picked off by Abdul Carter when he dropped into zone, which I understand why that's difficult to see if you're not accounting for him to drop, but you still can't throw that pass. And then the critical interception, absolutely, is a horrible play for Miller Moss, because that's a slant. That's a throw he's made 1,000 times. It's a throw, like, those are the types of throws he made against LSU. And so I have a hard time saying that he's not competent when the drive before, to win to take the lead, he was evading pressure and stepping up in the box and throwing downfield to Deuce Robinson and putting it in a place where only Deuce could catch it. He literally did that the drive before. So yeah, like it's hard to, again, I understand that outcome bias exists, and it's hard to say that about Miller Moss when he throws that bad pick, but like we've seen him do the right thing there.
Yes, and you need Miller Moss to make that throw in that moment. Yeah. You do. Right. Again, he made that throw against LSU. So don't say that he can't make that throw. He made that, he missed that throw this time, made that throw against LSU.
Yeah. I would say he made harder throws against LSU. I
would also like to point out that this is the most points that Penn State has given up in a regular season game since Ohio State in 2022. So we can talk until the cows come home about how about the areas where USC's offense missed their opportunity to secure this win for USC.
Yeah.
But if you had told me that USC was going to score 30 points in this game, I would have felt really good about that. And I'm not going to I don't want to let the offense off the hook because they settled for field goals far too often.
Yes.
If they're able to find the end zone, it's a different game. The defense set them up in good spots this time to create those field goals. So there was all that going on, but in the end, USC scored 30 points and lost. And Penn State is not a team that gives up 30 points very often, practically ever in the last few years. So is it a sign that like Miller Moss isn't QB1 or that Miller Moss is the reason USC lost or anything like that? I think that's going way overboard. I have complaints about Miller. I have complaints about the routes that some of his wide receivers are running. I have complaints about Zachariah Branch being a far better athlete than he is a wide receiver at this stage in his career. He needs to be he needs to be able to catch a ball when it is not wide open and put right on his chest.
Yeah.
All of those little things contribute to this offense not getting over the hump. But at the same time, like this was a full team loss in a lot of senses because the defense did a lot, the offense did a lot, and the defense didn't do enough, and the offense didn't do enough. So, I don't think you can pinpoint a singular person.
Yeah.
Even though that singular play is definitely going to live long in the memory.
Yeah. Thomas in the chat says it's not Moss. It's Lincoln Riley. He can't help himself but throw a lot in the end of the fourth quarter when we should be running. The other teams know what we're going to do and position themselves accordingly. I hear you. Absolutely, I hear you. SC threw the ball 9 times in the fourth quarter. They ran 7. 5 of those 9 were on the last drive, which is a 2-minute drill drive, which means that 2 runs. So before that, SC in the fourth quarter ran the ball 5 times, and threw the ball 4 times. They ran more than they threw. Also, I think it's difficult for people to want the clock management to be better while also wanting more runs on the left. Like those 2 things contradict each other a little bit. And Paul says, I think Riley handed Franklin this game. I disagree. I think that if I was a Penn State fan and SC wins this game, I think there's like 5 different things you can point to as questionable moments for Penn State. The first drive where they march down the field and then suddenly stop running up the middle, the weak point of SC's defense.
You want to talk about somebody getting too cutesy.
Going for it on 4th and 7 in their own territory with 5 minutes to go, I thought was insane. It worked. It worked for them. Absolutely, it worked for them. But
again, it's results.
Everything is a results
oriented
industry. Yeah. It's results-based industry, and you get more leeway when you win, and you don't when you lose, even if you're an underdog to the number 4 team in the country. And speaking of underdogs, Alicia, this is the perfect time to go to Underdog Fantasy. You're not feeling good. SC just lost the game. Guess what? You can download Underdog Fantasy. Right now, Ohio State and Oregon are playing. pull up your Underdog Fantasy app. Look at the stat projections. How many yards is Dylan Gabriel going to throw? You're looking forward to tomorrow when the Bears are playing and Caleb Williams is playing, your Rams, your Raiders, your Chargers, whoever you root for. Pull up the Underdog Fantasy app, look at the stat projections, and you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing whether you think your favorite players will go higher or lower their stat projections. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. I've done it. It's incredibly easy, super simple. Just head over to Underdog simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com with promo code Reign of Troy, all one word. Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Reign of Troy, to claim your new customer special, a free pick, and your deposit offer must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or next step to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-887-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY to 567. Alicia, as our virtual studio continues to go on the fritz, Alicia, we got a bunch of super chats. You want to go over those?
Yes. We got, where am I? Okay, we've got a super chat from Dave JETS. David, thank you for the super chat. USC has broken my heart for the last time. Yeah, David, they broke our heart, but I'm gonna guess that wasn't for the last time, because guess what? We all keep coming back. So
we're
gear
suckers.
up for more of this.
You're addicted.
We are all
People
addicted.
are addicted.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should not put our emotional well-being on the shoulders of,
but we do,
of football players.
We
and
all
yet
do.
We all do. And
We all do.
And I'm gonna guess that JETS is for the Jets. I wish you well this year, David. I wish you well.
It's a brutal combo right now. Absolutely.
I saw this TikTok today that it was people running a marathon, and there was a person holding a sign that said therapy was another option. And that's reminded me. I need to get that. Therapy was also an option.
Yeah.
NY Teskey.
Night Sky.
Night Sky.
Night Sky.
Night Sky. Oh.
Yeah.
That's okay.
The light bulb literally just went off
Night
above her
Sky.
head. Yeah.
Saying no one was picking USC to win is ludicrous. PSU played no one coming into this game. Sorry, but don't generalize. Riley needs to run more. I don't know. Take a look at the game day crew and every other predictor that I saw at any point this week. That's mine. And then thank you for another super chat, Night Sky. Wouldn't be surprised if Zach isn't back next year. I continue to think that Zachariah Branch on special teams is a victim of circumstance more than anything, because teams aren't really giving him opportunities to return, as they shouldn't.
Yeah.
But Zachariah Branch as a wide receiver is not where he needs to be. His route running isn't good enough. His hands aren't good enough. He can't make contested catches. USC keeps trying to get him.
He's not the guy to win a one-on-one
on the sideline, and it's just a one-on-one. My whole thing is just, if Zachariah Branch is covered, if there is anyone within 3 yards of him, don't throw the ball to him, because you're asking for an incompletion or worse. That's not good. And I think that Dennis Simmons, needs to be questioned about the development or the speed of development that that USC has with a couple of these the wide receivers. It's been frustrating this year for sure. But the hope would be that Branch figures it out and becomes the weapon that he can be. But at the same time, if he can't, there is a long line of really fast USC players, Gary Bryant Jr., Raleek Brown, long line of them who didn't live up to those expectations for a variety of reasons.
Vidal
Hazelton, yeah, and it's unfortunate that it does look like Zachariah Branch is veering in that direction, but it's not over. I mean, again, I think we're probably way too quick to write off players when they're still, a sophomore. They're
I think part of it, there was a comment in the chat that go into it quickly. I missed it about SC needs to be developing guys for the NFL. I agree, and ideally you'd like to absolutely see all your receivers take a step forward. And I think it's been frustrating with this receiving core that Jacoby Lane has 10 catches against Wisconsin, looks like a world beater, Biletnikoff candidate, and then 2 catches the next 2 days, next 2 games, 2 catches today for just 18 yards. But I think the good thing about this receiving core is that there's a lot of talent there, and it's somebody else's game every day. Today was the Mekhi Lemon game, right? There's been a Mekhi Lemon game. There's been a Jacoby Lane game. There's been a Kyron Hudson game. There was a Lake McCree game as a tight end. There are different guys stepping up in different moments. And I think that part is good. The bad part is, no one has really showed up and said, I am the number one guy for sure. And a lot of that, I think blame goes on Zachariah Branch because of all the expectations put on him, which were rightfully so. Like, he had a great freshman year, especially as a special teamer.
Well, as a returner, and that's the problem. He
looked so good.
He didn't have a great freshman year as a receiver either. So
no, but I think you could have overlooked that as, well, there's just a bunch of other dudes ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
And turns out that maybe there was a reason why there was a bunch of other dudes ahead of him at receiver. So it's a double-edged sword. I think.
Well, it doesn't help. It really doesn't help Zachariah Branch as much as I think he's not delivering at the level that he needs to be delivering. It really doesn't help Zachariah Branch that Mekhi Lemon looks as good as he does. And I think, and again, I thought that Jacoby Lane was ready to take that step. So, I've been wrong on this, but Mekhi Lemon, he missed a couple games with it was a concussion, right? If he doesn't have the missed time, I would not be surprised if Mekhi Lemon was already that dude, because every game that he's played in, he's looked like that dude, that, for lack of a better comparison, that Taj Washington reliability guy.
Yeah.
And
Burnett.
Yeah, and USC needs that guy, and it feels very much like Mekhi Lemon. And the contrast between the ball going to Mekhi Lemon and the ball going to Zachariah Branch, it's too clear there that it makes everything that Zachariah Branch does look less, because you see what Lemon is doing. So the comparison isn't doing him any favors either.
Yeah. 100%. And I want to say that Lemon is the guy. I just, we said that about Jacoby Lane 2 weeks ago, and then it didn't happen the following week, right? So you want to see more from Lemon. You want to see more from everybody. But Mekhi Lemon is absolutely doing what you'd like to see the last 2
Deuce
weeks.
Robinson keeps popping up with a couple of huge catches every game. Eventually he's going to have his 10-catch game. And
well,
we'll see what that
it's brutal. There were 3 balls to him that were not caught today. One of them was an interception that is not on Deuce Robinson.
It's just too high.
It's too high for the really tall guy.
Yeah.
Miller Moss was right. You got to throw it high to him, but not that high.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other ones is a great attempt at a catch, but you can't just reel it in.
And that's also good defense.
Sure. Yeah. But I think you'd ideally like to see Deuce Robinson targeted more than 4 times in a game. And a lot of that comes down to, I think, opposing defenses playing a lot of too high. They're playing a lot of, coverage looks that are trying to take away Robinson and Lane and force Miller Moss to take the shots to Lemon and Branch and Hudson underneath. And when Miller Moss is at his best, he's taking those and he's hitting them, and he's crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. But there just wasn't enough of that today.
But and I said in the preview that like my fear coming into this game was that sometimes you can have a quarterback who's just really good at what they do.
Yeah.
And eventually they just get worn down and they start to rush throws and they start missing throws simply because the hits are in their head now. And I don't know for sure if that's what happened in this game, but it's entirely possible that the uncharacteristic inaccuracy that we saw from Miller in a few spots in this game is just what happens to a quarterback when they get beaten down the way that and take hits the way that Miller Moss has taken hits this season. So that's the ongoing sort of long-term problem of an offensive line taking this line long to sort of become functional.
I think that's what makes the interception at the end that much more frustrating, is because I agree. I think that Miller Moss needs more leeway given the offensive line that's in front of him. And I think that understanding needs to be brought into the context of how we evaluate Miller Moss. But when he does get time,
he needs to make the throw.
And it's a throw where a guy is wide open on a critical down to win a football game. You got to make that throw, because that's the throw that everyone's going to remember. Nobody's going to remember when he evaded pressure and neatly tiptoed around his blockers, rolled out to the right, and threw to Mekhi Lemon on a rollout. Nobody's going to remember when he steps up in the pocket with pass rushers in his face and throws a strike downfield to Deuce Robinson. No, you're going to remember the interception. My dad he's told me a million times the story of the 1993 SC UCLA game, and my dad hated Rob Johnson because he threw an interception against UCLA at the goal line. And he's told the story a million times. Rob Johnson, right before that, makes a beautiful pass downfield to set up that play. Nobody remembers that if you throw an interception on the next play. The interception's the one that you tell your kids about, So, and for Miller, he threw the interception in a moment that you're going to tell your kids about, and that's no good. It's not good.
Yeah.
All right, we got some mailbag stuff, a bunch of comments we flagged in the chat that we want to get to.
You've got mail.
Johnny Troiano says maybe OU fans are correct. Maybe Lincoln Riley is one-dimensional. I don't think this is the game for that comment. I think it's a fair comment in a lot of games, but I'm not sure that this is the one.
I understand in the context of the season.
Sure.
I get it. But this isn't the game that you look at and say, like, Lincoln Riley's a bad coach. I don't think that that's what lost USC the game. If Lincoln Riley was a bad coach, and again, I don't want to get into this argument again, because I don't think here's my problem. This is the thing that annoys me the most, is that there's like these extremes that force me into a position that is a position that is not necessarily a full-blown opinion that I hold, which is like that
you have to combat the extreme opinion
because of the extreme opinions about
it's
Lincoln
like the Clay
Riley
Helton thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
People thought you were a Clay Helton apologist.
Yeah, when it was just like, if Clay Helton was that bad, he would have been fired way earlier, and that's the problem for USC. With Lincoln Riley, it's I do not think this program is where it should be 3 years into the Lincoln Riley era. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, the defense is 3 years behind because he got the defensive coordinator hire wrong and then waited too long to correct that. The team is where they are right now in large part because the offensive line is not where they need to be 3 years into the Riley era. And part of that is the offensive line that was inherited, but a large part of that is also that they didn't do the immediate rebuilding that they needed to do with the offensive line. I think they made the mistake of relying too much on the transfer portal and not loading up on and not recruiting the position well enough. And now USC is in a position where their offensive line is 6 games into the season and finally starting to come together, but you're 3-3. So, and your defense has taken great strides from certainly the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still giving up 33 points to a Penn State game in a 30 points. I'm not going to attack them for that overtime field goal, but 30 points in a game that USC's offense put up 30 points on a Penn State defense that practically never gives up 30 points in a game.
Right.
And again, fails to close out a game defensively because they can't get off the field on fourth down. But that is not surprising when you're in year one of a defensive rebuild. The fact that a year one of a defensive rebuild is coming in year 3 of the Lincoln Riley era is definitely a problem.
Right.
So I think Riley has a lot to answer for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Having said that, Lincoln Riley is not a bad coach. Lincoln Riley is a very capable offensive coach who has not taken that next step towards being an actual contender.
Yeah.
And maybe he never will. But I also think that USC fans would have bitten your hand off for Kalen DeBoer when he left Washington, and Oklahoma fans want to drive him out of Tuscaloosa right now. Alabama fans want to drive him out of Tuscaloosa right now. USC fans would bite your hand off for Ryan Day, and Buckeyes fans have been wanting to drive him out of Columbus for years. Jim Harbaugh was getting run out of Ann Arbor until he took a pay cut to stick around and then won a national title. So I just think there's so much more going on when it comes to evaluating the head coach, especially when that head coach is on a 10-year deal. And realistically, you're in this for the long haul. So scream as much as you want about wanting Riley gone, but I'm here to tell you now, if you got 6 years of Clay Helton, you're getting 6 years of Lincoln Riley, and you got to hope for better results. But
Danny in the chat I think this is a good question. Ignoring the buyout, you take that out of it. That doesn't matter. Should SC fire Lincoln Riley? I think the answer is no.
No.
And the answer is no, because this team is better than last year.
USC
is significantly better than last year. And I think that is why it's all the more frustrating that they don't have the wins to show for it. The 5-8 thing of him being 5-8 in the last 13 games, it is insane that SC is 5-8 in the last 13 games, because they've deserved to win a fair bunch of those. And a lot of those are because of coaching, especially last year. Absolutely. And I think that there's, questionable coaching decisions that you can say in every loss. At the same time, I think the losses this year are a completely different category of losses last year. If this year's team had last year's defense, this game is not close. There's no way that Penn State is held to all those field goals. I think that there's a world in which Caleb Williams Caleb Williams makes the pass to Deuce Robinson, yes. But the game isn't on the line at that point, because the defense wouldn't have kept Penn State to 30 points at that point.
Yeah, my problem is that USC is partly in the position that they're in and continue to be in because of bad decisions when it comes to coaching, whether hiring or firing or not firing. And if you are coming through in year 3 of a coach who had the kind of track record that Riley had at Oklahoma, and your coach has lost 3 games by a combined 13 points, all in the final minute of the game or overtime, then you're pulling the plug far too quickly.
Yeah.
It would be one thing if USC had lost 3 games where they got jiggle-bagged by Michigan and Penn State and lost a close game to Minnesota.
Right.
That's a different conversation. USC has lost 3 games by a combined 13 points. 2 of those games were on the road. The one at home was to the number 4 team in the country, and it was in overtime. Perspective does matter here, and this is not a record that you fire a coach for. And I know USC fans are so fickle, not just USC fans, fans in general are fickle because Alabama fans will be telling you right now to fire Kalen DeBoer,
Well,
and that's silly.
But I think it's heightened too in college football. Like one of the things I love about college football is that every game matters. This is why I did not like the expanded playoff. Every game matters. And if you want to win a national championship, well, you better win every game. I love that about college football. I love the stakes. The flip side of the stakes is, and especially with the advent of the playoff, is I think it's created an extreme mindset of win championships or nothing else is good enough. And SC is a program that has 11 national championships. So absolutely, SC is a program that needs to be looking at that and play for championships. This is SC. This is where Lincoln Riley called it would be the Mecca of football, all those things, right? So yes, that should absolutely be the goal. I think the reality is that there's 133 teams in FBS and one wins a national championship. And so if your whole basis for, and obviously not 133 teams are even capable of winning a national championship, but hear me out here. If your whole basis on judging success is winning a national championship or not, then literally every coach needs to be fired right now. Literally every single one. Like I love college football because of the stakes of every game, but I also love that college football has this ability to where so many teams can feel good about where they are without winning a national championship. This is a sport that was created in a way where, like, you can win a Rose Bowl and feel good about yourself. You can, have a rebuilding year and feel good about yourself. SC, and obviously context matters, which is important to understand even with this loss. Context matters. SC went 6-6 in 2001. And people were raving about that team. Raving about them. Because they won like 5 games in a row at the end. They were 1-5. And they roared back and they beat UCLA 27-0. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we got a comment in the chat that I starred from John Smith in all caps. Who cares what the eye test says, really? You're judged by your record. Absolutely, you're judged by your record. But, like, who cares what the eye test says? SC fans care what the eye test is when it's the other way around. The 11-2 Pac-12 champion team in 2017, everybody got on here and said that team sucked and they were ass. They were 11-2. Why did they say they sucked and they were ass? Because of the eye test. So you can't use the eye test to flunk one team and then use the eye test to say, yeah, but this team sucks because just because of the record. You know what I mean? And it sucks because college football is a game where, like, the record is everything. This is not the NFL. If this was the NFL and SC was 3-3 at this point, it would be a completely different story. If the Chiefs start 3-3, then, people wanting to jump off a cliff are truly insane, right? But this isn't that sport. This is a sport where, people track planes and they put for sale signs in coaches' front yards, and they send blimps and planes with signs into the sky to fire coaches. And 3-3 is never going to feel good no matter who you are. Even if you've outplayed teams along the way, even if I think you've proven a lot of doubters wrong nationally about whether or not SC belongs in the Big Ten. SC has played Penn State and Michigan, and they should have won both games. They were not outplayed like the little, wimpy Pac-12 team was supposed to be outplayed. They just don't have a win to talk about it for it in either of those games, and that sucks because that's what you're truly judged on at the end of the day.
I just think that USC is, and obviously we don't know what happens from here, and our judgment of this season changes, and our judgment of these first 6 games changes considerably depending on what happens from here on out. But I think USC is in danger of being in a throw the baby out with the bathwater situation. 3-3 through 6 games.
Yeah.
With 13 points between them. 13 points in like 1 minute each between them. I know people are tired of we should have won this game, but would you rather be in a position? Would you? I mean, I don't know. Maybe after 10 years of didn't even have a chance in this game, I'm a little bit more forgiving of a 3-point loss.
But Kenny in the chat says there's a difference between winning a national championship is the only way to succeed versus SC is in year 3 of Lincoln Riley and should have them competing for conference championships. Yes, you're spot on. You're exactly right, and you're exactly right what you just said, Alicia. Absolutely.
The
key is
it's the nuance of between that. Like when I say that I'm not, I don't think that 3 losses by 13 collective points is enough for me to be sitting here saying that this team sucks and they need to fire everybody and USC has no future and everything is trash and woe is me. When I say that doesn't mean that I'm sitting here saying that this is all okay. USC should be happy to be 3-3,
right,
and that everything is fine, and that USC is definitely going to go out and be undefeated from here on out. That's not what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. There was a comment, and I'm missing it. I don't see it. ISJST says in all caps, "I'm tired of these sunshine pumpers." If you think that we're sunshine pumpers, it's not the case, dude. It's not the case. And I know Alicia and I had a conversation before we started about like let's go through here and not get derailed with talking points and whatnot. But yeah.
I would just also like, not that I want to get into an argument with the chat, but like those of you who thought that people were happy with the 2017 USC team, take it from people who got on a podcast after every single game that season and talked to a whole lot of USC fans because of it. People hated that team.
Yeah.
People thought that team was trash.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Dimitri in the chat says, Moss's pick is the least of the problems today. LOL, what about our tackles or how the receivers don't get open or how we are defending Riley's decision? Are we unlucky in recruiting?
Unlucky in recruiting in some levels, certainly. I think that USC could have used some defensive linemen at times. Certainly could have used some offensive linemen. Do they not have the offensive linemen that they need because they're unlucky in recruiting? I don't know about that. I mean, obviously
Was that you or Jesse?
That was me.
Oh, I could have sworn that. I'm like...
I think that there are certainly recruiting wins and losses that could have gone one way or the other and could have changed the situation for USC in a particular position or two. But I don't know that it's unlucky at this point. I think that USC, again, I think that the reason that USC is in this position with Lincoln Riley in this position is that he's made some critical missteps. The critical misstep of the defensive coordinator, the critical misstep of the offensive line recruiting and development and all that kind of stuff. But adjacent to that is the critical misstep, and we talked about this for a long time, that USC, it seemed to us and it seemed to everybody in the know that USC was using its NIL budget primarily on transfers and that they weren't going to shell out the bag for high school recruits.
Yeah.
And there were a variety of reasons for that. One of those was uncertainty about what the legality of all of that would end up being. And unfortunately, USC's bet on that turned out to be wrong because the legality turned out to be whatever, do whatever you want.
Right.
And the other side of that is not paying unproven recruits NIL bags to like out of principle or whatever. Clearly that was a misstep because there are teams out there who are doing that and are reaping the benefits because of it, because they've had, big time offensive line recruits who are helping them win games now. So that's a big misstep that he made. one of the reasons why I'm not totally out on this staff and this coach is that I think that the missteps that we've seen are correctable missteps, at least.
Mhm.
And the defensive coordinator thing has been corrected, albeit later than and
Yeah.
Riley has lost a lot of the honeymoon period because of it, and that's his fault.
Yeah.
The
Well-
offensive line, I was ready to burn some people at the stake, but I will say against a Penn State, and again, I need to see this continue through the season to prove that this wasn't just a one-off. But the offensive line has improved week by week.
Mhm.
We are grading on a curve, but
'Cause
there
you have
isn't
to,
there is
unfortunately.
improvement against a legitimate front. So maybe a touch of optimism on that front. Maybe I'm not totally bought in, but I do see the kernels of potential. So like I guess what I'm getting at is that for me, there have clearly been mistakes.
Mhm.
But there have been mistakes in the sense of like, I look at my own life and I look at the lives of like my family members and I look at the lives of athletes that I followed over the years and this, that, and the other thing. And like, there are always mistakes there. It's about what you do after them and how you learn and grow.
There we go.
With the exception of Restream, because I am Restream is killing me right now. But I try not to judge people solely on their mistakes. I am probably an overly forgiving person, but to be fair,
Thankfully,
I like that about myself. So, take it for what it is. Maybe I set myself up for disappointment more often than others, but I'd also rather do that than totally write off people who still have some potential. So that's sort of where I'm at. I see potential with this team, and I see potential with this staff. That the reason that I what I get back to, because I got sidetracked by stupid Restream undoing itself a million times. I think that having a coach who you can feel very quite confident that you will have a competent quarterback and competent offense more often than not
Mhm.
is a good place to start. I've always said that my head coach, I want to feel confident in at least one side of the ball. I think ideally everybody would say you want to be in the position where you have a defensive minded head coach who, if nothing else, that their defense is going to be at a certain level.
Yeah.
It's trickier with the offensive guys, but USC does have an offensive guy that I think does have quarterback play and offensive play by and large at a certain level, and you can build around that if you fix this, that, or the other thing.
Right.
That doesn't mean I think for certain that Lincoln Riley is going to be that guy who puts it all together, because a lot of guys don't put it all together.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's impossible to put it all together, and so I'm not out yet.
Right.
Especially when, if I was out, it wouldn't matter anyways, because there's not going to be a coaching change. So what's the point?
Yeah. Well, Danny in the chat says year 3 is not time for potential. Yeah, I think
and that's Riley's fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the biggest part about this, because and you can't do this obviously, and people get mad when you talk about ifs. But like, if last year did not exist, if Caleb Williams was eligible for the draft before last year, and if this 2023 just evaporates, SC moves directly to 2024, I think the context for this stuff is drastically different, because then I think we're able to sit here and point to all the steps forward significantly easier, right? Like about the defense and all those kind of things. But and now part of the step forward this year is because last year did exist, right? Because there was a big step backwards last year, and so that works in two directions, right? But yeah, by year 3, You should be winning these. You should be winning games that are this close. Absolutely. It's not good enough that SC is in all these games and should win all these games, because I think you can make an argument that they were the best team in all these 6 games. I don't know if you'd win that argument, but you could make it if you wanted to. But that's not good. Being able to make an argument isn't good enough in year 3. Absolutely, I agree. But the flip side of it is, strictly on the eye test, this team is absolutely where it belongs in the Big Ten. They are absolutely capable of playing with Penn State and Michigan in the top end of the Big Ten, something that all the national media doubted that SC could possibly do. Again, that's not good enough. You want more than that, but that's way better than the alternative.
And that's where I'm at. Again, I think that obviously I want USC to be further ahead than they are.
Yeah.
But I would also, and contrary to what some people were saying, they'd rather have that 2017 team that got boat raced by Notre Dame. Contrary to that, I would rather have a team that was in every game to the last minute and lost a couple of them, because that tells you a lot more about what their potential is going forward than a team like that 2017 team that came out of that season winning a lot of close games and then getting boat raced.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, what happened? That team, they couldn't progress because they were out kicking their coverage in 2017. So I will live through the hurt of a 3-3 record if that 3-3 is competitive, on the hope that you can turn that 3-3 to victories down the line. You can learn lessons from these losses that USC has done. Now, it's not guaranteed that USC learns any lessons from these losses.
Yeah.
And that's the fear. I get it.
Well, I think
there's also the chance that they do. So
I think that's, again, the frustrating part about this game is this is a game where if SC wins, we can sit here and say that SC learned from all their mistakes. Before the interception, there's not a critical error.
Yeah.
They faced a scary defensive front in Penn State, and that defensive front did not eat up SC like they were supposed to.
Has USC gone down from like 5 critical errors to 3 critical errors to 1 critical error, and maybe that. I mean, I'm not. I don't think
the critical error of this one is maybe the ultimate critical error.
Hey, everybody wanted to see USC start out strong in a game, have a strong first half, and for the first time, USC had a strong first half. So,
this is the problem. I understand all the criticism about Lincoln Riley because he's not getting the results. Absolutely. But I think that there is an outcome bias there, in the sense that I think he is reacting to things and changing things, but that's what makes this more frustrating. Is these all 3 losses, they don't follow. They get to the same place. The map goes to the same place, but there are 3 different routes to the same place. You know what I mean? 3 completely different, and you can argue that each one of them was a correction of the previous one, but that correction didn't matter. Against Minnesota, they didn't give up the big plays. Did not give up the big plays. They were great on 3rd down. Still lost, didn't matter. Because they made those mistakes against Michigan. Lost, didn't matter. Against Penn State, they stopped the overwhelming amount of critical errors. Still doesn't matter because they had a critical error that was terrible. They find a way to make the offensive line not an issue. Still doesn't matter that they lose. And so it becomes whack-a-mole, and whack-a-mole is never a positive, and it's never going to feel a positive. And so being in the discussion and being competitive is just something that's never going to feel good. And it's never going to be enough when you're USC and you're paying $10 million for a head coach. By the way, this is a slight pet peeve. I hate when people talk about spending $10 million on a head coach. It's not your
It's
money.
not your money.
Well, unless you're a booster, maybe it is.
Yeah.
But like, it's not literally your money. And B, that's how much coaches cost. Like, you can't buy one at Pick and Save. And if you did buy one at Pick and Save, you'd be pissed you bought one at Pick and Save anyways.
Guess what? USC bought a head coach at Pick and Save. His name was Clay Helton.
Yeah.
So, again, that all that stuff is silly. But I'd also like to address something in the chat. The air raid has never won a national title. Do you think there is a demonstrable difference between the offense that Lincoln Riley runs and the offense that Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian run?
I would also say that the air raid has won a national championship. Mike Leach's offense won a national championship at Oklahoma.
Yeah. And Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian won national titles at Alabama because Nick Saban saw the writing on the wall and recognized he couldn't keep winning national titles with the same old vanilla offense that he was running before. So he tapped in 2 spread guys.
Yeah.
And they won national titles.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley's offense is not Mike Leach's air raid, which, by the way, as you correctly pointed out, Mike Leach, the air raid has won these games because the air raid is not even like the air. There are teams that still run a
SC doesn't even run the air raid.
SC doesn't run an air raid.
Yeah.
This is not an air raid. This is Lincoln Riley's system, which is more very like quite close to 50-50 run pass.
Everybody's multiple at this point anyways.
And Kalen DeBoer ran an air raid, like air raid multiple offense. Yeah, the systems that don't fit into these little boxes anymore because they're all borrowing from each other at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just a pet peeve of mine. But
yeah. Jason in the chat says, I appreciate y'all's passion, but again, do yourselves a favor and look up the meaning of war in baseball. People aren't saying that Miller Moss is a bad human, but we all agree that we could be 6-0 with a legit top 10 quarterback. And there was another comment hold on, about being 6-0 with Cam Ward or Dylan Gabriel.
Okay, Cam Ward is an incredible quarterback, but he declared for the draft and then came back out. So that was a weird situation and heavily NIL driven. And if you wanted to shell out the millions of dollars that could have gotten Cam Ward to USC, by all means, please have done that.
If Miami convinced them, SC theoretically could have convinced them, sure. Yeah.
And number 2, Dylan Gabriel, tell me you haven't been watching Oregon without telling me you haven't been watching Oregon. That's what I'd say. I don't think Dylan Gabriel has done anything better this season than Miller Moss has done this season.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like I think all these things can coexist. Yes, I do agree. I think SC could be 6-0 if they had an elite quarterback. I think they'd also be 6-0. They had an elite defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
If they had this, if they had that, if they had this other thing. Yeah. That's how football works. And we can't sit here and say that we can't say ifs about the one plays that SC is away, but then also sit here and say, yeah, but if they had this other quarterback.
If Jaden Mayaba was playing.
Like you can't be mad at ifs in one direction, but then bring your own ifs. You know what I mean?
By the way, again, like you cannot say for certain that Jaden Mayaba would have led this team to a 6-0 record. Because again, Jaden Mayaba had a turnover problem at UNLV. What has killed USC this year? Turnovers. Jaden Mayaba's numbers while throwing under pressure were horrendous last year at UNLV. So would USC have even been in a position to win any of these games? I don't know. Maybe 6 months in being coached by Lincoln Riley and Lincoln Riley systems, maybe that does put him up there. Entirely possible.
Yeah.
Maybe. But but I think that at this stage, if Lincoln Riley thought that Jaden Mayaba could run his offense efficiently and win games for him, Lincoln Riley would have him in. And if he makes that change later in the season, it will be because he decides that Jaden Mayaba is ready to run his offense.
Yeah.
But like the idea that we know better about which quarterback would win games than Lincoln Riley, I think that's the height of hubris is what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And before this game, I guess because of the pick 6 against Michigan. Yeah. But like, I don't think that this was the most obvious. Yeah. But Miller did this one thing that literally didn't lead to a win. is the most obvious. But like the other ones, yeah, if he would have played a little bit better, yeah, SC could have won. But he also, if he didn't play the way he did, SC is not in those games.
Yeah.
So it works in two directions.
It's not just two directions. It works in a million different.
It's multi-dimensional.
It's multi-dimensional.
Like
yeah.
polls. Like polls.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm going to throw this out there. Hear me out. I think there's a chance SC's ranked tomorrow.
No.
You don't think so?
Absolutely not. No, not no. Again, the polls are multidimensional.
They're multidimensional. Yes.
The number. I mean, aside from the fact that the polls are also, the pollsters are very simple. This isn't the college football playoff rankings who might be considering that because of the narrow margins of USC's losses. These are AP voters who do vote based on.
That's fair.
But no, because Navy and Army are both still undefeated.
Yeah, they're going to move up. Yeah.
Nebraska, I am going to assume that they're going to win tonight. They're going to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa just blew out Washington. I think they're more likely to get in over USC at this stage. Like 3-loss USC is not going to be ranked in the top 25.
No,
it's not.
But what I'm saying is SC was number 26 in the AP poll. And I think because there were the others receiving votes, and they were unranked by 70 something votes. If SC proved anything, I think they proved that they're better than the number 26 team in the country.
I mean, I think that's fair.
That's what I'm saying. But yes, polls are three-dimensional, multi-dimensional. This is a prime example of that. Teams below them are going to move up like Army and Navy. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to wrap up there. We've gone long. I think we've got all the super chats. We appreciate you guys. Big shout out to I think it's Stephen B. Am I getting that right? Who gives a bunch of super chats after the fact on YouTube. We appreciate you. We'll be back as always on Monday to talk more about this game, take your questions, listen to your calls, your emails, all of that. Email address, reignoftroy@fanside.com. Phone number 818-643-7227. We'll be live 4 p.m. Pacific time, 6 a.m. if you're in Jakarta. So if you're in Jakarta, you'll be ready at 6 a.m. and 2 a.m. in Tel Aviv. So if you're keeping track.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Until next time, we'll see you.
See ya.
See ya.